Let's go Browns! The Cleveland Browns are less than a month away from their season opener. The roster is still in flux, and suddenly three stories explode at once. A surprise defensive signing of a player who's been with 4 NFL teams in just 2 years, a rookie quarterback who went from a fifth-round afterthought to a preseason sensation in a single game, and a defensive player of the year making headlines for all the wrong reasons, again. All of this is happening while the head coach is days away from announcing who will lead the team in Week 1. This isn't just another quiet August in Berea. This feels like the kind of boiling point that could set the stage for a dream season or unravel before it even begins. And the craziest part? Each of these changes and moments could completely reshape the Browns' history in 2025. We have important updates, and I'll tell you everything that's happening. But before we continue, hit the like button if you've been a Cleveland Browns fan for over 20 years. It's great to see fans of all ages. There are people here who were at the first game. If possible, comment something like, "Let's go, Browns. Let's go to the Super Bowl." Let's get straight to the point. Defensive end Titus Leo was signed, a name that may not be familiar to all fans yet, but his trajectory and potential could make him a player to watch as the season approaches. The fascinating thing here is that Leo isn't just a coaching guy. He's a former Wagner College standout, one of the few from that small program to make it to the NFL. We're talking about a 2-time Northeast Conference Defensive Player of the Year, a 3-time All-Conference first-team selection, and a stat sheet replete with 234 tackles, 40 tackles for loss, 13 sacks, and 6 forced fumbles. That's not a summary you see every day. And yet, his NFL journey so far has been a roller coaster. Drafted by the Colts in the 6th round of 2023, injured before the first week of his rookie year, bouncing from Indianapolis to New England, where he played in 4 regular season games, then to Tennessee, and now landing in Cleveland. It's his 4th NFL home, and with roster cuts looming, he's fighting for a chance to stay. To make room for him, the Browns released wide receiver Chase Cota, the undrafted Oregon product, showing just how calculated this move was. Cleveland isn't just adding depth, they're clearly looking for the right mix of players before the all-important finalization of the 53-man roster. But while Leo's arrival is intriguing, he's not the only new storyline grabbing attention. The Browns' quarterback situation has quietly become one of the most fascinating subplots of this preseason. Shedeur Sanders, the rookie who had 143 players taken before him in this year's draft, lit up his preseason debut. With Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and Dillon Gabriel all unavailable for that first game, Sanders stepped in and didn't just manage, he delivered. 2 touchdown passes, poised under pressure, and a flash of the talent that made him such a polarizing draft prospect. Suddenly, whispers have started. Could this kid be more than just a long-term project? Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated even noted that Sanders' performance might have significantly increased his chances of getting real regular season snaps if things go sideways. Flacco is still expected to be the Week 1 starter, but the idea of seeing Sanders under center later this season no longer feels far-fetched. Now, it's not all smooth sailing in Berea. Off the field, one of the Browns' biggest stars has landed in the headlines for the wrong reasons again. Myles Garrett, fresh off a Defensive Player of the Year campaign, was cited for driving 100 miles per hour in a 60 miles per hour zone in Strongsville, just after the team returned from their preseason win in Charlotte. This isn't new territory for Garrett. In 2022, he survived a harrowing crash after losing control of his Porsche on a wet road while swerving to avoid an animal. At the time, he called it a wake-up call to be more careful. And yet, this marks his 8th speeding citation since joining the Browns in 2017. While the $250 fine won't dent his wallet, the incident could stir questions about focus and discipline as the Browns aim to make a serious run this year. Still, between his 4 All-Pro selections, 6 Pro Bowls, and the fact he's already Cleveland's all-time sack leader, Garrett remains an irreplaceable anchor on defense, especially after securing that massive 4-year $160 million extension. Meanwhile, head coach Kevin Stefanski is facing his own high-stakes decision. The QB1 spot for Week 1 against the Bengals is still officially undecided, but according to Mary Kay Cabot, that announcement could come as soon as after the second preseason game in Philadelphia. It's a delicate balancing act. Go with the steady hand of Flacco, the upside of a returning Pickett or Gabriel, or the wild card potential of Sanders. The fact that the Browns spent early draft picks on 2 quarterbacks this year yet might still hand the job to a 40-year-old veteran says a lot about where the coaching staff's mindset is right now. It also sets up an intriguing preseason finale against the Rams, where the depth chart could finally lock in. And this is where it all starts to get really interesting. You've got a newly signed defensive end with something to prove, a rookie quarterback who just forced his way into the conversation, a franchise star dealing with another off-field hiccup, and a head coach about to make a decision that could shape the entire season. The pieces are moving fast, and the stakes couldn't be higher as Cleveland pushes toward the opener. So here's the question, with all these changes, surprises, and risks in play, do you think the Browns are making the right moves to set themselves up for a playoff push? Or are we seeing warning signs of another roller coaster season? Because while the headlines right now are full of preseason hype, we all know how quickly that can flip once the regular season grind begins. For Titus Leo, the path forward is brutally clear. He has just 2 more preseason games to prove he belongs. In a crowded defensive line room already stacked with talent, he'll need to show not just flashes, but consistency. Special teams could become his ticket to sticking around, as often happens for fringe defensive players fighting for a final roster spot. His ability to adapt to the Browns scheme, play multiple roles up front, and bring the kind of relentless motor he showed at Wagner might be the deciding factor in whether he's wearing orange and brown in September or looking for his 5th NFL home before year's end. And here's the thing, Cleveland has been quietly making these under-the-radar moves for years, the kind that sometimes lead to breakout contributors nobody saw coming. Could Leo be the next? That's exactly the kind of storyline that keeps preseason football from being just practice games. But of course, all of this exists under the shadow of the quarterback conversation, because in the NFL, everything ultimately flows from the guy under center. Shedeur Sanders' debut didn't just light up the scoreboard, it injected an entirely new level of energy into the fan base. And yet, there's a reality check here. He's still 4th on the depth chart. Flacco remains QB1 for now. Pickett is on track to return soon, and Gabriel will be back in live drills this week. That means Sanders is going to see fewer reps moving forward, which puts an even bigger spotlight on every single snap he takes. For a rookie, that's pressure. But it's also opportunity, especially with Stefanski watching closely to see how each quarterback responds in the heat of competition. If Sanders keeps making plays, it's going to be harder and harder for the coaching staff to justify not giving him a real shot if the season gets bumpy. And speaking of bumpy, Myles Garrett's latest speeding ticket isn't exactly the kind of preseason headline a Super Bowl hopeful wants. Garrett has been nothing short of dominant on the field, the kind of generational pass rusher that forces offenses to change entire game plans. But for a player who already had a near-fatal crash just a couple of years ago, seeing his name tied to another triple-digit speeding citation raises eyebrows. It's the 8th such infraction since he was drafted, and while $250 is pocket change to a player on a $160 million contract, the optics matter. Fans, teammates, and even the front office will be hoping this is truly just a blip and not a sign of distraction. Because if there's one thing the Browns can't afford this year, it's losing their defensive cornerstone to something avoidable. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking towards Stefanski's quarterback decision. He's been clear that an announcement is coming soon, possibly right after the team's preseason game against the Eagles. That timing makes sense. The Browns will want their starter locked in before the final preseason tune-up against the Rams so the first-team offense can get real reps together. Most signs still point to Flacco getting the nod, and his veteran leadership could be the steadying hand this team needs early on. But there's an unspoken gamble here. The Browns didn't draft 2 quarterbacks this year just to have them ride the bench all season. If the team stumbles early, fans will be calling for a change, and that's when names like Sanders or even Gabriel could suddenly become much more relevant. In the bigger picture, this preseason feels different. The Browns aren't just tinkering at the edges of the roster, they're actively creating competition, moving pieces, and signaling that nothing is guaranteed. From a small school defensive end trying to stick, to a rookie quarterback forcing his way into the conversation, to the star pass rusher making headlines for the wrong reasons, there's a sense that every day between now and week 1 is going to matter. And that's exactly why this team is so compelling right now. The storylines are